on this business of patients' rights. John, what's the president's strategy now?
Well, Dan, while the president continues to vow that he will veto any patient's Bill of Rights that doesn't suit him, he does not want to be the one to kill this legislation, and so was eager to reach a compromise that he could sign. At a recent meeting on Capitol Hill, White House officials told House Republicans what the president could swallow. Republicans, in turn, told the White House that it was crucial there be language in the legislation allowing patients to take their claims into state court. At a time when his approval ratings are sagging, the president doesn't want to give even the appearance that he's on the wrong side of this issue. So now he's turned his sights to the Senate. But seeking compromise with the Democrats will be far more difficult than in the House. Today, they denounced the House measure as a show, a fig leaf, one that promises patients the right to sue, but then puts so many hurdles in their path that they'll find it difficult even getting into state court. Dan?
John Roberts at the White House. The Federal Reserve Board took action again today, trying to pump some energy into the U.S. economy. It clipped another 1/4 point from interest rates, bringing the total cut since January to 2 3/4 points. Wall Street just shrugged. The Dow Industrials lost another 37 points. The Nasdaq gained 10. CBS News economics correspondent Anthony Mason has more on the Market Watch.
For the 6th time in 6 months, the Fed cut rates, slashing them another 1/4 point to a 7-year low, as Chairman Alan Greenspan tries to revive an economy still showing few signs of life.
It is taking much longer than a lot of us anticipated, but that tells you the gravity of the problem.
Stocks usually rally after rate cuts, but the Dow has actually fallen 4% since the Fed began cutting in January. The Nasdaq is off 20%. And in the latest layoff news, the Nasdaq itself announced today it will cut 10% of its workforce.
I think we're skating very close to the edge of recession. Were it not for the fact that we've got this tax cut coming along, we would be in big trouble.
A $38 billion tax rebate is on its way this summer. Estimates are we'll spend about 1/3 of that.
That's enough to add perhaps 1 to 1.5 percentage points to the growth of the economy in the second half of this year.
Just enough to keep the economy from slipping into recession, perhaps. Falling energy prices could also act as a tailwind for the economy, not just gasoline.
But the price of natural gas and electricity, they've all gone down.
That should send consumer confidence up, says Wells Fargo economist Sung-Won Son, and put money in our pockets.
In fact, I feel that the economy is in the process of coming out of hibernation. And pretty soon we will see the economy moving about.
Wall Street, which wants the bears to go into hibernation, was hoping for a bigger rate cut today, 1/2 point instead of 1/4. But Dr. Greenspan has not closed his medicine bag. The Fed signaled it's ready to take out the scalpel again if the economy doesn't begin to show a pulse soon. Dan?
Anthony Mason in New York. The Bush administration today sent Congress its defense budget for fiscal year 2002, a $329 billion proposal, including major proposals for changing the U.S. military in fundamental ways. But as CBS News national security correspondent David Martin reports tonight, change can hurt, and when it hurts voters, politicians feel their pain.
Transforming the military into a 21st century force means, among other things, getting rid of 30 B-1 bombers, a $300 million airplane built to drop nuclear bombs on the now defunct Soviet Union. Sounds logical enough, but not to Georgia Senator Zell Miller.
That stinks. There's something wrong here. This could mean a loss of as many as 800 or 900 jobs in Middle Georgia.
At Robins Air Force Base, they have just completed building a $60 million facility to house the B-1.
Everyone's very committed to it, and shutting the doors on us just really isn't fair.
Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld also wants to retire the so-called Peacekeeper, an ICBM built to hurl nuclear warheads at that same old defunct Soviet Union. Trouble is, Congress passed a law making it illegal to take the Peacekeeper out of service.
They arrive at the Pentagon and they say, here's the drill. You've got the Peacekeeper. There's no money in the budget for the next 5 years to keep it. There's no money to retire it. And there's a law that says you can't retire it.
Rumsfeld's plans to transform the military are certain to trigger a firestorm of controversy. And nothing is more controversial than missile defense, which he plans to spend $8 billion on next year alone.
You can see here that there is quite a jump in the funding for missile defense.
This 747 may not look like a weapon for the 21st century, But in a hangar in Wichita, Kansas, it is being outfitted to carry laser generators that would shoot out a beam at the speed of light to fry an enemy missile as soon as it breaks through the clouds. It is a promising but still unproven technology that just had its budget nearly doubled. In with the new, out with the old. It's what transformation is all about, but the losers will fight it every step of the way. David Martin, CBS News, The Pentagon.
A best-selling author who wrote a book harshly critical of Anita Hill now says he was lying to discredit Hill after she testified against confirming Clarence Thomas to the U.S. Supreme Court. David Brock says he was out to ruin Hill's credibility and now describes himself as, and I quote, a writing cog, a witting cog in the Republican sleaze machine, end of quotation. Asked for reaction, Anita Hill said it's private and personal. Justice Thomas had no comment. It's been 1 week since a Houston mother allegedly drowned her 5 young children one by one in the bathtub of their home. Charged with murder, Andrea Yates remains in jail on a 24-hour suicide watch. So it was left to her husband to eulogize and bury the children today. CBS's Maureen Maher was there.
There are few words of comfort when a child dies, and virtually none at all when 5 are taken at once. And yet today, Russell Yates, the father of 5 murdered children, summoned the strength to speak.
They told a story about each one, and you felt like they were your own kids or your neighbor's kids.
Beginning with the oldest, Noah, who loved to draw rainbows, the 36-year-old father, walking from casket to casket, eulogized each of his 4 boys and infant daughter Mary. He placed a baby blanket with each child, said goodbye, and closed the coffins.
So I think that was the hardest thing to see, when he put those little blankets in each casket, and then of course then having to close, because that was the last time he'll ever see his children again.
400 family and friends came to the service.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
A service that appeared to be another example of a family full of extremes, from an unspeakable crime to an unshakable faith. Yates, who quoted from the Bible during the funeral, was told by his minister,
"You take it one step at a time," and that's what he's done. He's taken the first step today. Now tomorrow, he's going to be taking another step. I don't know exactly what that'll be.
Whatever that step may be, it will be a difficult one, with his wife locked up and possibly facing the death penalty, and his children now gone and buried. Maureen Maher, CBS News, Houston.
Next on the CBS Evening News, an Eye on America investigative report.
The CBS Evening News and tonight's Eye on America segment are sponsored by fast-acting Mylanta Supreme. Tastes great as it works.
Ever wonder whether that collapsing car seat was fixed? Or how about the latest on mad cow, or drug safety, or laser surgery? Starting next Monday and throughout July, Eye on America investigators will bring you new and updated reports on these and other stories that affect you and your family. Only on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Japan's Bridgestone company announced today it will shut down the Illinois factory that made many of the millions of Firestone tires recalled over the past year. The Decatur plant employs 1,500 people, producing about 10% of the Bridgestone and Firestone tires made in North America. It is to be closed by the end of the year. When it comes to classifying vehicles as cars or trucks, the definitions are all over the lot. Some of them are downright funny, but there's a lot riding on those definitions, especially for automakers who use them to swerve around what are supposed to be federal regulations on fuel efficiency and pollution. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Bob Orr makes the point and drives it home.
With its retro gangster-era styling, the PT Cruiser is wildly popular and has won top honors as North American Car of the Year.
Come on up and have a look.
The only wrinkle is the PT Cruiser has a deep, dark secret. It's not a car at all, but a truck. A profitable distinction for Daimler Chrysler.
To the average person out there, this is definitely going to look like cheating. I mean, how can you call the PT Cruiser a truck? It's not a truck. It's never going to be used like a truck is.
But Daimler Chrysler, with the government's blessing, classifies the PT Cruiser as a truck. And that helps the automaker meet government mileage standards. There are 2 standards:
Cars from each automaker must average 27.5 miles to the gallon. Light trucks, a category that includes SUVs and minivans, only have to average 20.7 miles per gallon. Fines are levied if the standards are not met. So moving the PT Cruiser at 27 miles a gallon to the truck category drives up Daimler Chrysler's truck average that otherwise is dragged down by bigger, bulkier SUVs that only get around 15 miles a gallon.
For every PT Cruiser sold, Daimler Chrysler can sell one more giant gas guzzler on which they make a mint. Detroit has found a way to legally cheat.
In fact, under existing regulations, it's easy and legal for automakers to turn cars into trucks. The PT Cruiser is built on a Dodge Neon platform, but when Daimler Chrysler flattened the back floor and made the rear seats removable, that was enough for regulators to accept the Cruiser as a truck. And other automakers are playing the same game. The Subaru Forester, the Toyota RAV4, and the Honda CR-V are essentially bulked-up cars that have been shifted over to the truck column. And that's not the only thing car makers are doing. Most Chevy Suburbans and all Ford Excursions are made just heavy enough to be exempt from fuel standards, just like dump trucks and school buses. Eliminating these gas guzzlers again helps the truck average.
There's no question that the automakers are trying to use every rule and regulation that they possibly can to their advantage because they're so close to just barely meeting what the law is.
Automakers stress that they are complying with Department of Transportation rules. And so far, only the Environmental Protection Agency has challenged Daimler Chrysler's assertion that the PT Cruiser is a truck. According to the EPA, when it comes to pollution standards, this is still a car. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
There's other news tonight about trucks, but not the kind anyone would confuse with a car. Responding to a House vote against letting long-haul trucks from Mexico operate freely on U.S. highways, President Bush promised today to fight for the provision, which is part of the NAFTA free trade deal with Mexico. The CBS Evening News rolls on from the nation's capital after this. California got a modest amount of relief from the electricity woes today in the form of a brand new power plant. Governor Gray Davis threw the switch, opening the first electricity plant to go online in the state in 13 years. This first in a series of new plants that eventually will produce enough power for up to 800,000 homes. Secretary of State Colin Powell today launched his mission to firm up an on-again, off-again ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinians. Greeted in Israel by Foreign Minister Peres, Powell said it's up to the Israelis to decide when violence has subsided enough to renew peace talks. But in the West Bank, Israeli troops fired rubber bullets to disperse Palestinians protesting a blockade of the city of Hebron. In Yugoslavia, Serb supporters of former President Milosevic protested government moves toward extraditing him to face a United Nations War Crimes Tribunal. But as Milosevic lawyers maneuvered to block extradition, the U.S. signaled its approval by agreeing to take part in an international conference on aid to Yugoslavia. A UN special session on AIDS closed with a compromise plan to fight the disease. Because of objections from Muslim nations, the plan does not identify homosexuals and other groups as vulnerable to AIDS. Pope John Paul II left for Rome after celebrating Mass for over 1 million people in Ukraine, where the Pope sought to heal the rift between Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians. And see this painting? No one in the public had seen Monet's Haystacks' Last Rays of the Sun for 105 years, until it was auctioned for what Sotheby's revealed today was $14.3 million. Scientists are closely watching that Philippine volcano that erupted Monday amid signs it may blow again. They're watching the fuming Mayon volcano so closely they had to dodge superheated boulders near the summit today. Another eruption isn't the only threat. Experts say heavy rain could send rivers of ash onto Philippine villages below.
Train your brain to do a better job if it's letting you down. If you're tired of forgetting, we've got help for you. Wake up to what's happening tomorrow morning on The Early Show with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Clayson.
The Pittsburgh Pirates have the worst record in the National League, but last night they pulled off a baseball first by stealing first base, literally. When a Pirate was called out at first on a close play against the Brewers, Pirates manager Lloyd McClendon took matters and the bag into his own hands. McClendon stalked back to the dugout with the base, saying, "Hey, the umpire wasn't using it." They don't call them the Pirates for nothing. And with that, we'll make our own getaway. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Washington, D.C. I'll be back with the CBS Evening News tomorrow night from New York. We hope you'll join us then. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
Experience you can trust. CBS News.